Welcome to Mining Over Canada. Join the Canadian Securities Exchange and our partners in a first-hand look into our country's vast mining landscape. Experience its regions, meet the people, explore the history, and find out what comes next in one of Canada's richest industries.
All right, good afternoon. It's James Black here from the Canadian Securities Exchange, welcoming you to the third panel today of the Mining Over Canada finale. And pleased to have you here. This is, like I said, our third session. It's the future of mining. So we're going to dig into some things that look into the future a little bit, and some of the things we're doing today to ensure that our world is made a better place through the efforts of those exploring and mining and developing our beautiful industry and doing it in Canada. So I'm here just to tell you that you can watch this content afterwards on CSE TV. That's our YouTube page. I will link it above in the chat room. And know that we've taped over 60 interviews as part of the Mining Over Canada initiative. It's over 20 hours of content. Some of the people speaking today have been featured in longer form interviews. And our host today, our moderator today, Barrington Miller, not only the voice of Mining Over Canada, if you watch our trailer, but also interviewer of many of the people on this program. So CSE, Canadian Securities Exchange, wants to thank you for being a part of this. I would say unprecedented event in media history from a stock exchange, and also to encourage you to watch more. You don't have to do it all 1 week. You can take the next few weeks or months or Christmas holidays to watch Mining Over Canada. So we'll see you on CSE TV. The here and now, we have a great panel, the future of mining, and I'll let Barrington Miller, my colleague and fellow Mobro, moderate this session with our expert panel. So please enjoy, ask questions, and we'll see you at the end for a special message from Anna Serin, our friend also from the CSE. Talk to you soon.
Well, thanks for that, James. I really appreciate it. And just to do a little self-promotion for Movember, yes, we don't normally look like this. Save a bro, uncles, brothers, dads, and so check out our Movember site if you want to contribute and learn more about it. Now, why are we here? We're not for that, but we're for the future of mining. And today I have a great panel. Ann Lewis from Invest Yukon, Don Duval from NORCAT, and Neils Christensen from Kitco News. What does the future of mining hold? If we all had a crystal ball, none of us would be here. And, we would be sailing on our gold yachts. But we do have some indicators and some really good feedback as to the direction that the future of mining holds. Now, I'm going to have the presenters or the panelists introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what it is you do and your organization. And I'm going to start with Ann Lewis from Invest Yukon. Go ahead, Ann.
Thanks. It's really great to be here. A lot of fun in the first interview, so it's nice to catch up with all of you virtually. Invest Yukon, or as you may have known it when it started, Yukon Mining Alliance. Invest Yukon is the brand that represents the leaders in exploration, development, and production in Yukon. We work collaboratively as explorers and producers, and working with the government of Yukon and our communities to connect investors to the competitive advantages here in the Yukon, of which we think there are many. So it's been a really fun 10-year journey so far, and I think lots of myths and misconceptions we were able to address, and hopefully raise the profile of Yukon and share really exciting stories, and a lot more to come.
If you haven't seen or met Ann, I encourage you to check out her interview with our very own Neil Mall. I watched it. I learned a lot. I'm embarrassed about how little I know about Canada and about mining, but that much we'll get to that later. Next up is Don Duval from NORCAT. I had the pleasure of interviewing him during Ontario Week. So take it away, Don.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, and thanks to my fellow panelists for joining. And Barrington, don't sell yourself short. I think the mustache looks great. I think you should keep it.
Okay.
I would second that. Absolutely. So I'm Don Duval. I'm CEO of NORCAT, and we're headquartered in Sudbury, Ontario, but we have offices in Ontario and around the world. And we aspire really to do two things. One, we aspire to be the global leader in all that is skilled labor training and development. Obviously, based in Sudbury, we're rooted in the mining industry, and we do work with mining companies around the world, really focused on that human capital equation, giving them the skills to be both productive and safe on the job all day, every day. And then concurrent to that, we also aspire to be the kind of the global one-stop shop for all that is the future of mining technology and innovation. And that's really rooted in one of the unique assets that we have, which is an underground operating mine just located just outside of Sudbury, that we use as a place to enable tech companies, be they big or small, to really develop and test and then subsequently demonstrate emerging technologies that are kind of poised to transform the global mining industry. So kind of unique perspectives, both on the human capital side and on the tech side.
Well, thanks a lot, Don. And last but not least, Neils Christensen from Kitco News. I was just telling him before we went on that I checked out his podcast, and he was telling us why gold is going down. So no pressure. Go ahead, Neils.
Yeah, so I'm actually agnostic on gold. Whether it goes up or down, I love covering it. So Kitco News is the top precious metal, one of the top precious metals news and information sites in the world. Cover everything from gold, silver, the mining industry, everything that moves the market. I'm watching. So.
And Kitco has been an awesome sponsor for Mining Over Canada. So shout out to Kitco. Now, mining and the future of mining. And I want to start with the people. I want to start with the people behind it. We're looking at a changing labor force. We're looking at an aging population, more involvement from Indigenous groups, not only in discussions with for the land, but as actual workers. And of course, there are women who are playing an increasing role in the mining sector. How does the future look when we're covering, the human perspective? And Anne, I'm going to start with you. Or Niels, did you put your hand up?
Yeah, actually, I would love to address this because I think this is huge.
This is the type of panel we have. Just throw your hand up.
Yeah, nicely done.
Go ahead, Niels.
Well, no, I think I really want to hear what Anne has to say, but this is a crisis that the mining sector faces in the next 10 years. We need to hire, according to a sector report, Canada needs to hire 100,000 people over the next 10 years. And, where does that come from? I think, it's women, it's minorities. Women have, I covered this story in 2019. Women represent about 5% of the top mining boards in Canada. They represent 18% of the workforce in the mining industry, well below national standard and national averages. So I think this is where we go. Is we need to reach out to women, we need to reach out to minorities and get them involved in the mining sector.
Yeah, don't wait for me. Just take it. Take it away.
And go ahead.
I couldn't agree more, Neil. I think that's really important from a high level. I think that where this starts is very much on the ground. This is something I'm really passionate about. I wear another hat as the president of Yukon Women in Mining, which really takes it straight to schools, straight to communities. And I think that one of the biggest hurdles we'll have in our industry is really just communicating the benefits of it, the advancements, the innovation, the diversity of positions within the sector. Because I don't even think we're at the point where we can attract the kind of talent that we want to see in the sector, just because we haven't been promoting the sector very well in terms of what it can offer. And so for us, I actually spend a lot of time talking to communities, talking to young women, to Indigenous communities, to minorities about all the different things that they can do. And a big part of that is also dispelling myths and misconceptions. We've got a lot of legacy issues in our industry. We've actually evolved very, very quickly as a sector. A lot of that, I think, led by the relationships with Indigenous communities. And really moving, the environmental movement forward, really moving technology forward with it. And I think that's the first piece, is really just making sure that every single one of us that are part of the sector and that we're advocating to our governments is that mining and the opportunities needs to be a part of our school system and a part of our community. And then we can deal with, getting people in and keeping them there. But that's where it's at.
Don, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of building on both of those comments, and I agree with both. It's interesting. The Mining Industry Human Resources Council of Canada is the entity that's forecasting about 100,000 new mine workers are going to be needed over the next 10 years in our country. And, and these are good paying jobs. And there's a bit of a disconnect when you look at the enrollment of, college programs and university programs that kind of illustrate, is there interest among these would-be mine workers to take educational programs to prepare them for a career in mining? And you've seen a gradual decline in students, being interested and motivated, be it at the college or university level, to prepare them for careers in mining. At the same time, there's growing demand given the aging population of retirees. So there's this conundrum tension that you're seeing where there's interesting employment opportunities, and yet there's not a lot of people interested in it. So, if you look at the future, I think there's strong recognition that, the traditional methods of incentivizing individuals to consider a career in the mining industry really is no longer working. And you just can't continually try to pay someone more to incentivize them to work in a remote location 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out. We're seeing that model failing in many respects. So I think as we look into the mining industry, engagement of local communities, Indigenous prospective workers, engaging more women, being able to appeal to there are unique opportunities, is going to be critically important. And coupled with that, I think the incentives that really are inspiring people to take up a career in mining are rooted in, an earlier comment that this notion of enhancing your mining operation by investing in technology not only improves productivity, but it's starting to enable them to win the battle for talent, where I now can, see myself working in an industry where I get to utilize this technology, and that inspires me. So the future is going to look very different for how you incentivize and engage this workforce. And the academic institutions have a critical role to play in that as well.
Well, I totally agree. And I was watching Anne's talk about engagement, and you were, I believe, doing virtual tours, if I'm not mistaken. First, you were doing it for investors, and then you were doing it for the actual sites. And you know better than I do. So, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite pieces about working with the Invest Yukon team, and then just really operating in the Yukon. Mining is my passion, and so when I get to talk to people across those bridges and go, where can we create a tool like this and use it for that as well? And so that's where the virtual tours came from. It was launched about 3 years ago. And so, if you go to it, you see the satellite image of the Yukon, and then you can click on various communities and see satellite image of the communities, and there's various messages in there. And then you can also use that tool for investors to dive into the project. So once you dive into the projects, you can look at a 3D model, you can watch a corporate presentation, see a message from management. But then those same things are also available to elders, to youth. And so you just create a much higher level of transparency across the board. What are you saying to investors about why they should come here? What are you saying to attract companies? Because sometimes, we're obviously trying to attract the majors and others. And people in the Yukon want to know what that message is. And then, it's about not having two streams of message. There's one message. This is the company and this is the industry. And it's always authentic and it's always available. And I think that that's probably a big transition. I think as an industry, we've been a bit afraid of sharing what we're doing and what we're up to. And I think, the more comfortable we get with honoring that our sector brings a lot of value, critical value, and just owning that, communities and, those we want to invite and encourage to be in the workforce will also see that and get excited about it. There's a lot to be excited about. And the best piece is our industry is just like one family, big family. I feel very separated from my family right now because you're all very far away from me. But I think that people can start to get that sense too.
And speaking of engagement and relating to, I guess, maybe a younger population, when I was watching or listening to Kitco, because I never met Neils, I was listening to his podcast, and that was unique because I remember reading the Kitco news at my desk, flipping through, and I remember scrolling online, and now I'm just like, oh, let me just click and listen. So how is technology evolving for you as Kitco engages with a new population?
I think, well, I mean, I think this year has been incredible in that, like, we've really seen the mining sector go and really embrace the online environment. In that, we had the biggest mining conference happens in Toronto every year in March. That was the last mining conference I went to. Now everything's being held online in these virtual rooms, and I think that is going to be a new venue for especially reaching out to younger people. I mean, you're going to get them on their phones, you're going to get them on their tablets. You're not necessarily going to get them into a convention room, talking to companies and talking to talking about bullying. It's not really going to happen, not in this day and age. But now you can literally reach them wherever they are, and that's Kitco. That's what Kitco does too. I mean, Kitco is completely all digital. We've always been all digital, and it's that, and it's easy to embrace that environment.
Well, speaking of PDAC, we did an interview with Felix Lee, the president, and PDAC, which will be March 8th to the 11th, 2021, which follows after the CSE PREDAC, which will happen near the end of February. Small plug there. They are going completely online and completely virtual. They had already planned to do at least a portion of this, and of course it had to speed up. If we knew PDAC was going to be the last big hurrah, I think we would have done more hurrahing.
I did enough hurrahing. It was busy enough for me. But yeah, I think but it's just like this. I don't think even when we come back, even when things are normal, hopefully by the summertime with all these vaccines, I think this virtual world stays, because we realize that we are reaching people, and it's that younger generation that we need to reach out to. One of the studies that I've read over the years is that there's going to be the biggest wealth transfer in the world when from money transferring from the baby boomers to the millennials. And so we need to speak their language, and we need to reach out to them.
One thing that which was really cool, and I've already begun that process with my 16-year-old and my 14-year-old, apparently. One thing about watching Anne's talk and speaking with Don are the unique approaches that they have to doing business. And can you tell us about what the Invest Yukon and who you work with and how you work together, which I don't see anywhere else in any other industry, actually working with people you're in competition with. So, yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just amazing that it actually came together, and it might be a case of, right size, right timing. But at the end of the day, the energy in the Yukon is about partnership and collaboration. And I think that is just very much built into who we are as a community, all the way, from grand chiefs and premiers right down to the people in the community and the, person who stops on the side of the road to help you out. It's just an energy that you work with. And I think that the companies embrace that as well. You will hear them all the time talking about, what's good for my neighbor is good for me. And any advancements and any demonstration of success just proves that another success can follow behind it. And so I think that really is the foundation that they move forward from, and that we're able to bring our platform and do really unique things, right? Like there's so many different places that we get to go, stages we get to be on, and messages we can share, like the virtual platform. Like we had been probably working on virtual for about 3 years, and I had this whole digital strategy that I was supposed to roll right after PDAC. And then it was just like, okay, man, this is going to get like hardcore upgrade, and we're going all in. So it did allow us to pivot really quickly. We hosted virtual site tours this year, which Neils has been on a couple of those, and then participated in our virtual tour panel look back as well. And when we bring investors and media and analysts to the territory, I think they really get that sense and take that away, that level of collaboration and cooperation, which honestly just helps you get stuff done faster, more efficiency, more clear lines of communication. And so that's really helpful. But this year, we jumped into the field, I think, it was the first program was running in early June, and we were out there filming. I think it's been 30 days safely out in the field, capturing that so that we could share 13 virtual mine tours this year, and I'm super proud of them.
You said a key word, which I want to get back to later, that it's safety and ESG. So I'm just putting it right there. I'm jumping to Don about what NORCAT is doing, which is unlike any other place that I've heard of or seen or spoken about.
Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment.
Yes, in a good way.
Yeah. It's interesting, kind of following some of the threads here. Make no mistake about it, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced companies, be it in mining or not, to really either expedite or rethink their digital transformation strategy. And in our business, if you look at it in two halves, on the first half, how we engage with our clients and some of the trends that we've seen in the last 8-9 months has been pretty remarkable, if I can use that term. So if you look at our global kind of skilled labor training and development, again, the human capital preparation of would-be or existing workers, we've seen a dramatic increase in our demand for services, products, programs using kind of remote learning technologies such as our virtual reality studio or augmented reality. We do a fair bit of training and development using equipment simulation. And that in itself is not new and unique. That's been part of our organization for a handful of years. But the ability now to deploy that with a command center here and being able to run scenarios and training remotely by shipping said companies the necessary tools is quite unique. And that is one example of different models of engagement. So it's quite interesting and transformative. And these things we discovered have always been on the radar of mining companies to understand more effective and efficient ways to engage their workers. And also, to Anne's point, some of the virtual mine tours that we've done with mining companies, huge interest in using these remote technologies now to engage, to educate, to create awareness. So we're quite keen on that. And to give you a sense of materiality, during that pandemic, year over year, our what we call learning technology development studio grew by about 400% in a very short period of time. So, it is an emerging trend that I think that maybe a silver lining to the pandemic. We've seen that grow and people investing time, money in using those tools. On the other side of that, something that might surprise you is, again, we operate an underground mine as a place to engage technology companies to do development testing, R&D oriented work, and then subsequently demonstration, showcasing work of technologies these companies believe are, poised to transform the global mining industry. And I will say, maybe around the declaration rather of the pandemic, so mid-March, we assumed that part of our business would just get halted immediately because who's doing work associated with that. And what was fascinating, it was just the opposite. Not unlike our training and development learning studio, the demand for tech clients around the world and domestically to utilize our facility to demonstrate their technologies is up about 300 to 400% year over year as well. And a lot of that was rooted in these tech companies, recognizing that mining companies are saying there is a new world and technology needs to, be adopted and deployed at a faster rate to ensure that we can maintain that level of competitiveness. So just some really fascinating trends that, maybe to Niels' point, I think many of them are going to be here to stay. And we're just kind of eagerly watching how things unfold.
Well, I was, thank you for that. I cut off Niels before we got to you. Niels, what were you?
Well, I was just going to say, first I wanted to say visiting NORCAT's mine in Sudbury is on my bucket list. I've talked to Don in interviews before, and I just this idea of this place where you get to play with toys of literally the future of mining. That sounds like Christmas time to me.
I want to go to the Yukon. My bucket list is to go to the Yukon.
Oh, that definitely needs to, and I'm gonna do another plug. The Sourtoe Cocktail. You have to do that.
Sourtoe Cocktail.
The Sourtoe Cocktail. That okay. I'll let Anne explain that. But I just wanted to say, I think every mining jurisdiction in Canada should be looking to the Yukon in how they promote themselves, whether it's, Atlantic Canada. Northern Quebec does it fairly well. I mean, they have also a conference, Explore. So I mean, they have some unity, but BC, Ontario, all of these companies should be getting together and saying, hey, this is what we're doing collectively. This is, and this is your chance to see, 13, 14 mines or, different projects around what we're doing. Like, I think the mining in Canada would be so much bigger if we had more collaboration as what we see in the Yukon.
That's a great point. And how many companies or organization groups are working together?
There's 18 companies currently. We started with 5, so it's grown a lot. And we do have criteria to be part of the membership, which has a lot to do about how long they've been here, the management teams, the geology. But they have to be good corporate citizens, both being able to work with government at all levels, territorially, and of course with all the Indigenous governments.
Well, that's truly amazing. Now I'm going to take that pin that I put there earlier because you mentioned the word safety or safe. Canada has a very, very good record, a world-class record as far as safety, and we're often a beacon for what the standards should look like. What is the future of not just safety but ESG when it comes to mining in Canada? If anybody wants to jump into that.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump into that. One of the things I loved about the ESG conversation and, just the way it really ramped up in lead into PDAC is I called a colleague and I was like, why is this just something, like, did I miss this? Is this just coming up? And when I looked at kind of the parameters and the metrics of it, I was like, oh, that is actually built into one of Yukon's foundational processes. It's built into our regulatory process, which came out of devolution, so Yukon, becoming a territory by itself. But that was really the result of land claims agreements, and our First Nations have self-governing agreements here, 11 out of 14. And so when that happened, they created the Umbrella Final Agreement, which led into us actually having a process in place which factors in ESG. And this goes back to kind of my starting point is there's so many of these factors that I feel are built into the Yukon just at our core and in the way that we operate and do business. So when I heard it kind of as it really did feel to me a bit like a buzzword, and I was kind of like, okay, but like, yeah. Everyone already doing that? I'm like, great. Okay, well then I do feel like that's an advantage for us. We live and breathe that, and the companies that I work with, I feel do too.
Well, you're ahead of the curve. You're ahead of the curve.
The one thing I will say, and maybe a little bit contrarian to one of the earlier comments around, yes, we in Canada can do more. The one thing I will say is I spent a ton of time in international jurisdictions working with mining companies, and the Canadian brand that we have that collectively work together as a country to ensure that we maintain our position atop the global competitiveness related to mining is pretty admirable when you're on the road meeting with other jurisdictions. The reputation that we have is remarkable. And I think it's rooted in a lot of good work, fully appreciating that we can continue to do more to maintain that, I'll say, leadership position. But on the safety side, building on Anne's comment, we do have a very robust and sophisticated regulatory system, be it at the provincial and federal level, that ensures that our mines are, as safe as they possibly can be. And there's continuous revisiting of that. And many jurisdictions around the world look to model a lot of their requirements after our regulatory, structure and foundation. But what's been really fascinating is, with this, I'll call it technology transformation underway, some of the technologies that are being deployed that further enhance our capability to have a really safe mining industry is really quite interesting. And you can look at everything from, integrated operations with autonomous vehicles, something that is rooted in getting the worker out from the underground or surface environment and allowing this technology to ensure that you can remove the risk by disassociating the person with the activity in the field. And the amount of investment, time, and effort in that, as an example, technology is unbelievable. And you have your kind of ancillary technologies such as, sensors for fatigue and a whole array of other, PPE-oriented technologies. But there is a huge amount of investment underway in technologies that are rooted in further enhancing the safety of mining companies And Canada is at the forefront of a lot of those developments, which is really inspiring.
Well, it's there's a lot to be proud of being in Canada, and that's one that I feel doesn't get enough direct attention, but it is huge. Niels, you get to talk to a lot of different companies and a lot of different people. What are you seeing or hearing as far as ESG, as far as safety, as far as what people might be looking for when they're discussing mining and possibly mining investing?
Well, I think what really stands out to me is that it's not a buzzword in the industry. It's actually almost a way of life now. You cannot succeed. EY had they do a study every year. The biggest risks for the mining industry. It used to be ounces. It used to be that discovery, and now actually their top risk is that social license, and you don't get that social license by just throwing around buzzwords. You really have to not just walk the walk, but really live it. And I think and that's the one thing. Like Canadian companies are doing that, and Canadian listed companies working outside of Canada in other countries are bringing that to other countries and setting the example. And I think that's what's really exciting, and there are important benchmarks. The World Gold Council has their responsible mining platforms and benchmarks that we're working towards creating this world recognized system. So we're getting there. I mean, it's going to take a while, but I think Canada can really lead the way in making sure that mines are safe, that mines are equitable, when it comes to staff and responsible.
Well, and if I could build on that, Niels, you've just piqued my my memory. I think it may have been the same Ernst & Young report, or perhaps not, but nonetheless, E&Y did a survey of the skilled labor workforce in Newmont's Borden mine, which deployed the all-electric battery electric vehicle fleet underground. And you can appreciate, the financial, the shareholder productivity rationale as to why, they went with the BEV fleet. But what I found more fascinating, and in the spirit of the new world of work and expectations of would-be workers, greater than or somewhere in the range of 90% of the individuals that were surveyed by E&Y said that they do not want a job that returns to operating a diesel fleet underground. So now you got to listen to your workforce. And yes, the investment's rooted in one of, productivity, shareholder value, competitiveness, obviously a safety element. But when your workforce is telling you, I am not returning back to the traditional way of diesel underground for all the concerns, you need to understand that is the transformation that, if you want to attract new workers, hey, you better think long and hard about having an electric fleet if you're operating in the underground context.
I just want to add, at PDAC, I got to play with some of these programs, and yeah, I want to play video games all day. I want to sit in one of those cool chairs and move watch the computer screen and like that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit in a dusty, dirty diesel truck.
Absolutely. Well, that's on the autonomous side, but even for the mining companies that are investing in non-autonomous fleets, if you are working underground and continuing to go underground, yes, there's a financial business case to go deeper with battery electric vehicles. That makes sense at a certain threshold. But I think that Borden mine interview with that skilled labor workforce to say that we are not returning. And, if you could envision, even if the productivity targets were to, not deliver on the expected results, you got to listen to your workforce and their expectations of what a job means from an environmental perspective, given the theme of ESG, right? So just an interesting data point that I think we need to take heed of. That's very important.
And I just want to add too, this technology, I think, not only does it add to ESG, but it actually does add to profitability. I mean, if you don't need to ventilate diesel fumes, can you have smaller shafts? If you take the worker outside of it and just have BEV vehicles, remote controlled, I mean, how small do these shafts have to be? Your profitability, your waste rock would be so much lower.
Well, I heard the term social license or licensing when I was interviewing Metallo, listed on the CSE from the Atlantic Canada, Halifax. And I was talking with Liz McKenzie. They have an operation in Quebec, and they said, yeah, we need a social license. Well, what do you mean you need a social license? We're like, no, in order to operate, it's becoming that's what you need. It's a no-brainer, zero hesitation, zero question. And I guess I wanted to sort of steer this back to Anne when it comes to with that social license. We did just touch on the Indigenous groups when you said reaching out and making sure they are included and part of the process. And especially in your video, you went out. It was one thing to film about the Yukon, but it's another thing to film about the Yukon and show the people what you filmed about the Yukon. And I thought that was really, really important. And I guess I just want to touch more on how you are interacting with Indigenous groups and other groups that you represent.
Yeah, so Invest Yukon doesn't do any direct advocacy or work with Indigenous communities. There are organizations in the Yukon that take the lead on that. Our Chamber of Mines, we have a producers group. But I think it's important that it's not just companies and territorial and federal governments going to communities. It's Indigenous governments leading the way in lots of these things and determining, if you look at self-governing agreements, they actually break the land into categories, right? Category A, B, and R blocks. And a lot of that factored in mineral wealth and claims and where they saw value. And, this was 20 years ago that many of them came into effect, but, they took 20 years or longer to negotiate many of them. And so, that's at the core for them as well and in their backyard. I mean, Yukon's gold rush was kicked off by an Indigenous woman who actually found gold in the Yukon and was just recognized last year as a Canadian Mining Hall of Famer. So this, for us, it's not, just about a social license. It's about literally being step in step. And we take lots of our leadership cues from leaders within the community who have a vested interest in seeing opportunities for people. And it's, it's not about jobs, it's about investment. It's about, creating long-term stability, all of the other things that come along with the industry, all the businesses that are created by it. When we have a really strong mining economy, and I'll just kind of speak to the Yukon, but it is true, I think, across Canada, particularly in rural Canada, the stronger the mining economy, the more diverse the economy can actually be. Because you are creating wealth, you're creating all these spin-off opportunities where you get more tech companies, where you get more innovation, where you just get more retailers, more coffee shops. So the spin-off from that is really quite significant. And Indigenous communities in Yukon have, led the way in that, I think, well, for us from the start, right? It starts right at 1896. And, we still very much factor this in. The Grand Chief of Yukon was one of the people interviewed for Mining Over Canada. So this is very much a step-in-step process for us.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Don, go ahead.
I echo Anne's sentiment exactly. And it's interesting. It's not just, specific to Canada. Again, we do work in South America, Middle East, and Africa. And this social license to operate and engagement of a local community is a core contributor to the success of that mining operation. Bringing in, I'll say external workers from other developed jurisdictions to operate and build the mine exclusively just is not a sustainable model. It just doesn't make economic sense, right? But make no mistake, engaging these local communities, and I think one of the earlier threads that Anne had mentioned around, just building awareness as to what a career in mining is to inspire and motivate, and then subsequently investing the time and effort to provide the right training and development. A, it's the right thing to do, but B, it's a very compelling business case to engage that local community. And what piqued me to jump in here is this notion of not only providing, a safe, mining operation, be it on the personal or environmental side, but this notion of creating jobs on a supplier ecosystem where you can help burgeoning Indigenous entrepreneurs who might not want to work in the operating mine, but would welcome the option to set up a cafe or some sort of supply service company in the community that supports the mining industry is critically important. And a lot of the, within Canada, we have a fairly robust network of innovation centers that have the tools, the programs, and the services that can be provided to these communities, can be modified to meet the unique characteristics and cultural nuances of those communities to build the competence and confidence of these would-be supply service workers to sell to the mining operation. How great a model is that to have that as part of the social license to operate?
I think we might be, winding down. I'm not sure how much time they're going to give us, but before we do get the big hook, what is the future of mining in Canada? Is it good? Is it something we're looking forward to? Are we going to be short workers? Is gold going to just keep going? Shifting workforce, like what is it? That's what I want to know, and I'm sure our audience wants to know too. And Niels, I'm looking at you.
Well, one of the things actually we didn't really touch on, which I kind of been watching, is blockchain technology as well.
Ooh, you're right. Sorry, forget that last question. Let's talk blockchain.
This is sort of where I see sort of the Canadian mining industry. I mean, and some Canadian mining companies have started already to embrace this, but literally tracking the mineral from the mine site all the way through the chain to your jewelry or to your iPhone or to your tablet. I think blockchain is going to play a big role in this, and it's going to make people, and I think it's going to bring everything together. When you talk about ESG, if people know exactly where their gold is coming from, from that, that's used in your iPhone, they want to, they want to make sure that the company that's mining it is following, the best practices and taking ESG seriously. And so I think that's going to be a big part of the future. As to what this looks like, I'm actually really excited. Like I say, I really want Don to answer this question too, because I see technology as just growing. The one caveat I have though is that in the mining sector, when things are going well, they kind of, they stop innovating, or in the past they've stopped innovating and focused on getting the ounces out of the ground and making as much money as possible. I think maybe this time is different. Margins are big enough that, we can start looking at new technology and how to maintain the profitability that we're seeing in the mining industry. But yeah, I'm excited to see, because I think the future is going to be very, very interesting.
Nice. Don?
Yeah, if I look forward, a couple of interesting trends. One, I think the mining companies in Canada will continue to divest their own in-house R&D function, giving rise to a continuing, growing, burgeoning supply service sector. So in that, mining companies will become buyers of emerging technologies, as opposed to historically 30, 40 years ago, they prided themselves with their in-house R&D function. So with that rise of a burgeoning supply service tech ecosystem, I think you're going to see significant growth in the venture capital private equity markets investing in these tech companies, because once you create a strong buy market for emerging technologies, you're going to see the capital follow. And you're starting to see that already with the Industrial Innovation Fund, with McRock and a handful of other VC firms paying more attention to tech that is supporting the mining industry as well as others. And I think that's a really exciting trend, because it's really going to demonstrate to the markets that there's an adoption opportunity for these emerging technologies. And and I think thematically, if I look at the Canadian context, if I were to pick some key themes where you're going to see radical transformation, there's kind of three things that I'm keeping my eye on. For underground mining, if you can solve the continuous cutting challenge in hard rock mining, where as opposed to drill blast muck, you can get sophisticated continuous cutting technology that works effectively, efficiently, and safely, I think that'll be transformative. I think this notion of the migration to battery electric vehicles and the electrification of the fleet and the mine will be transformative. And then the other element associated with that is you're going to see, I think, a massive transformation over the next 5 to 10 years in tele-remote autonomous vehicle operation, getting the worker out, be it on surface or underground. And those decisions, I think, are rooted in, there's a financial return, a competitiveness return, a shareholder return that a company is going to make those investments. But I go back to one of my earlier comments. Make no mistake, aging population forecasted, I think, Neil's close to 100,000 mine workers required in Canada over the next 10 years. The only way that these mining companies are going to maintain their competitiveness is winning the battle for talent. And if they have really interesting technology, to use the analogy around, hey, I have an iPad and I can sit at home in a coffee shop, you can pay me less. I don't think there's going to be a salary war. In fact, I think you're going to see a slight retraction and compensation for some roles because of the trade-off of livelihood and the ability to stay within your home coffee shop environment to operate an autonomous vehicle. I think those companies that make those investments twofold for a financial return, but to win the battle for talent, and it's happening fast. I think in the next less than 10 years, you're going to see a massive transformation in what it means to have a career in mining and what a mining looks like in Canada.
Thank you. Anne?
Yeah, just to pick up on that, the battle for talent, I think we win that through communication of what we're actually doing. I think that if we are not engaging the general public, those who don't know where minerals come from, how they get out of the ground, and where they're going, and it has to move so far beyond saying if it's not grown, it's mined, right? Like that was a great catchphrase. I think somebody came up with that in 1970. I've seen a bumper sticker with it. It's true and we get it, but that is not going to connect anyone with the sector today. You are going to have to use these cool technologies. You are going to have to be innovative, and you are going to have to be transparent as an industry, and own it. Own when we do really well, own when we need improvement. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every sector is constantly striving for improvement, and doing better and making mistakes along the way. And I think that we need to stop shying away from some of those hard conversations, because it is one of the things and one of the biggest barriers they talk about for attracting women to the sector, and I think this is true for a lot of people, Indigenous groups and others, is that if the community that you live and reside in doesn't fundamentally understand or support the sector, that's one of the biggest barriers for staying in that job, because you cannot go to work and come home and have your family and your friends say that, I don't understand why you do what you do. You're hurting the environment, you're hurting the community. And if there's no way for them to share that conversation and to have around them the information to support, no, look, here's all of the cool things that are doing. Here's how it's changed. Here's what happened before. Like, let's have that conversation. But here's what's happening now. And it's really, I think, important to bring the public and millennials and everyone else along for that journey with us. And then I think, the jobs are innovative and fun and rewarding, and a lot of them pay well. So that part, I think, will take care of itself. But it's this other piece of making sure that we're really communicating what our sector is, and everybody has to own a piece of that.
I think it might have been Jerry Asp with his interview with Richard Carleton, who said that every single job that you can think of in Canada can be done in mining. Like everything. You need somebody to drive. You need somebody working in medicine. You need somebody to build stuff. Like every single job that one can think of can be applied to and used in the mining industry and sector somehow. And, I don't have a background in mining. Sitting there really thinking about it, that was my goal. I was trying to think of something. One thing I learned about in Ontario Week is that, the largest population of Finnish people outside of Finland might be residing in Northern Ontario, because they came over and basically took over the mining sector when they needed workers. And they stayed there, and there was a lot of similarities between both countries. And needless to say, the biggest selection of saunas is also in Northern Ontario.
I can confirm that. I can absolutely confirm that is true. So
I'm really glad that you, Niels, that you mentioned blockchain. This takes me to a very early story. When I was working with Rob Cook, we went into an interview to talk about a mining company, and Rob was talking for about 20 minutes, and this other person was talking, and then we realized we were talking about different kinds of mining. And we just didn't know. The same phrase, the same everything was being used. And it said about generator or water power, and we're like, I don't think you really need that for the mining that you're talking about. It's like, well, what are you talking about? And but there is that crossover. So.
But it's not like the digital assets. It's actually the blockchain. It's about tracking. It's tracking the metals, and I think that is going to be the future.
And we see it in other sectors. We see it in other sectors as well, like coffee, diamonds. Diamonds is a big one. Responsible, like you want to know where. I mean, diamonds is mining, not another sector, but and to Don's point about in other industries, especially ones I'm using cannabis as an example, we're getting away from the vertical integration, and we are seeing more, like you said, it's being outsourced. You can't be the expert and the best in every single thing. So if your research and development can be outsourced and can be done with a company that's focusing on that and innovative technology, why not do that? Why not take that? It could be, it might be cheaper and faster and more innovative. So, yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot of positive things. I'm not sure how much time we have if we can just keep talking, but we're gonna keep talking.
I'm a journalist, so I can keep talking forever. This is what I do. Yeah. I want to say to Don's point as well, and I think some mining companies got into problems because they were looked at as science experiments and not producers, not miners. And I think so maybe we take that away from the industry and we let somebody else do the science experiments and then bring that into the mining sector. I think that is an interesting concept.
Oh, hello, Anna.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I'm the official hook. I'm the velvet roped hook.
Nice.
You guys, you know what? You said it best. You guys are so lovely to talk to. And so I don't want to stop you. We might have to do a part 2 of this.
Oh, I'm totally in. Except I'm going to do it from the Yukon. Just letting you know.
Anna she didn't even explain what the Sourtoe is.
Oh, yes. Now I need to know.
Okay. What's the Sourtoe?
Oh, man. So the
Why am I scared?
It used to be a little scared. So it is an actual human toe that is part of a traditional drink here in the Yukon. In the Yukon, you can be called a Chaco, which is a new arrival, or a sourdough, someone who survived a winter. And so it's a play on sour toe. So the sour toe is a human toe. It could be any of the little toes. And you put it in a glass of 40 proof, usually Yukon Drac. And you can drink it fast or you can drink it slow, but your lips must touch the toe. And it's at the Downtown Hotel, the historic hotel in Dawson City. I kid you not. And we do it every year with investors and analysts. Of course, lots of tourists are part of the Sourtoe Cocktail Club.
How many sour toes have you had?
I do not want to admit that.
No. All you have to know is they're delicious.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds wonderful.
And I do believe the toe was donated from the winner of the Iditarod from a few years ago. I think that the toe that they're using is actually from the winner of the Iditarod.
You do things different. I'll tell you that.
And it's cabin fever. So this, it comes from a really old story of someone, getting frostbite and then their toes ending up in a cocktail. But I think, come to the Yukon, hear it all. Tourism and mining are step to the experience here. So I do hope you get to come up.
I love it.
Well, on that note, I just want to thank our wonderful panelists. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Niels. Please check out Kitco. Check out NORCAT. Check out Invest Yukon. I've been your host, Barrington Miller, with the Canadian Securities Exchange. And before I sign off to Anna, I'd like to wish her a happy belated birthday from yesterday. So everyone can please clap for Anna.
Well, thank you. It's, at least I get to be with my virtual family on my birthday as opposed to real family with our restrictions. So thank you for that.
No problem. And with that, I turn over the controls to Anna Serin. Thank you again to our wonderful panel. And I've been your host, Barrington Miller, with the future of mining in Canada.
You know, there's just a few things I wanted to say. This has been an unbelievable experience. We started this experience on October 19th, and here we are November 24th, and we're still in it. The panels today, thank you so much to all the participants who came to the table to bring their views. I had a colleague who said to me some time ago, it's time that we tell the mining story in a different way. And I think that this was really the beginning of telling that story in a different way. I encourage everyone to check out all the videos that we've created. We really did make an emphasis on the visual element of it. So we're taking you across the country visually to take a look at what's going on in Quebec and what does that look like versus the Northern Territories versus British Columbia. And I think we really did achieve that. This is definitely an initiative that we'll keep moving forward with. You know, we've had such a neat dialogue at the CSE. I've been with the CSE for 4.5 years, and in those 4.5 years, I have to say that there's been such an involvement in cannabis and in blockchain and in psychedelics even, and in many aspects of the tech sector. But the one thing I have to say is, after experiencing Mining Over Canada and all the interviews that we've had and the great content, mining is an emerging sector. And I encourage people to take a look at it, to include it in their portfolios, take a look at some of our issuers. They're amazing issuers. You know, we talked about Canada. So that was the amazing part. Canada is such a big country. There's so much going on. If we have the chance, we'll try and cover other countries, but really it globally is around the world. It is such a big sector and there's so much going on. And I think when there's an inflow of capital like we've seen over the past 3 to 6 months, you know, and maybe a bit of a bull market that we're starting to see, that inflow of capital, you know, as mentioned just in this last panel, is going to create opportunity. It's going to make job creation. It's going to, you know, further technology. It's going to change things. And I think this next generation really does demand that things are done differently. And I think people are listening, and I think money is flowing to that type of thing. So I encourage people, don't be afraid of the mining sector. It's not too technical. There is so much about it so I encourage you guys to do that as well. Make sure that you're getting good advice when you're out there making these decisions, because there are experts out there that do this every day, all day long. I myself thought that I had a fairly nimble understanding of the mining sector, and I can't believe how much I learned through this journey. So I encourage everyone to do that. Once again, I want to thank, first of all, my family at the CSE. Everyone just worked tirelessly to make this project happen. The hours that went into it and the product that was created in the end is amazing. So, you know, for my family at the CSE, I think that we really are changing with the times, just like everybody else is having to, with being virtual, being online. And I'm really excited about this project, and we'll be doing much more of this. So stay tuned. Make sure you go to our YouTube page, hit subscribe, and you'll get notifications of new content that's always coming out. We're always highlighting our new issuers. We're doing thought leaders. There's tons of stuff coming. So make sure that you pay attention to that. I also want to thank, of course, our sponsors. Our sponsors, you know, it's not necessarily an easy time to be sponsoring events. Everyone is trying to tighten their belts and make sure that they can make it through, you know, these awkward, unprecedented times. So thank you so much to MNP, Odyssey Trust, Gowling WLG, Kitco Media, and of course, Longford Exploration and DigiGeo. Thank you so much. You guys are so lovely to deal with, and you've been such a great support to all of us. As well, I want to, of course, thank our team Sparks. They do so much of our online content, and they're just amazing at what they do. And I think that, you know, the one encouragement I have for people is go check out this content, discover more, learn about it. This is just as much an emerging market as all the other ones, and it's pretty exciting. And as said before in our panel earlier, if it's not grown, it's mined. Everything that we touch, everything that we use on a daily basis, as we sit in our homes, dependent on our computers and our microphones and our lights, you know, our Wi-Fi, everything is based on stuff that we're pulling out of the ground. It is changing. It's a dynamic industry. The diversity is amazing. Our relationships with First Nations are amazing and changing. Infrastructure in small communities is being developed. It is an amazing sector. So stay tuned. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us and everything that you participated in.